The thoughts, views, and comments expressed by Sidebar, its guests, callers, and advisors are not necessarily those of the management, ownership, or production unit of ILS Verizon Media Group. Sidebar, a 103.5 The Beat podcast, is a production of ILTV Studios and may not be reproduced or represented, in part or in its entirety, without the express written consent of Verizon Media Group. Sidebar is the intellectual property of Verizon Media Group. Copyright 2024. All rights reserved.
Welcome to Sidebar, 103 The Beat podcast, powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. So this week, I had planned out a very long rant. And it was, I like to rant and rave about rich people and the working class and, workers of the world unite, that sort of stuff. But then other things happened. And I wanted to wait 2 weeks to talk about it, but I felt like I should talk about it now. I feel like it's important to talk about it now. Numbers don't lie, but Bahamians don't count. And what do I mean? All right. So while I was off the island, apparently they made some sort of announcement that you're going to be like VAT 0% on groceries or whatever. And great. So now it's not just food items. It's supposed to be like essential goods or something like that. Anyway, whatever. Doesn't matter. That's not the important thing. The important thing is after this is announced that certain media outlets did some calculations and they're like, oh, it's only like $11. And in my head, it was like, that's a weird specific number that you're able to latch on. Even as a headline, it felt weird. It's like, how'd you come to that number? How are you doing that? And I perused the front page of a follow-up paper after the prime minister was like, oh, you guys are wrong. And they were like, no, we're not wrong. And they explained that they came to the number because the Ministry of Finance or Economic Affairs, I can't keep track. One of them, they said that the loss in VAT from making this reduction will only be like $15 million, right? So we need not worry. And then, so what that media house did was they took the $15 million and they divided it by, I guess, the number of households or the number of persons that would pay VAT. And then they came up with the figure of $11 or something along those lines. I'm not going to say that they're wrong. I'm going to say that at best they're disingenuous or misinformed. And it's an easy mistake to make because they're doing the same thing that people do with GDP, right? Where the gross domestic product, if you divide it up, you say, okay, the Bahamas, the gross domestic product is this many billions. If you divide it up amongst all of the people, or this many millions, you divide it up among the thousands of people in the country, it comes up, at one point it was like 32,000. It fluctuates between 30 something and high 20 something. So like somewhere between 26,000 and 35,000. It fluctuates between that, right? So that's the GDP. Each person is producing that much, or they're worth that much on some level, right? But that's not true. I mean, if you average it out, I don't think that the average Bahamian makes 30 something thousand. I could be wrong. I stand to, whatever. But I know for sure the average Bahamian doesn't have that access to that sort of funds, you know. So what that number, while the number might be true, how does it help the average Bahamian understand their average life and their day-to-day operation? This annoys me because when I finished the then COB, now University of the Bahamas, I have my bachelor's in English. I have an associate's in journalism. I applied to several film schools. I got into all. Um, I needed a scholarship because, film, it's liberal arts. It's not a real thing. Anyway, I needed a scholarship. And I applied to the OAS. Well, I was going to apply to OAS. But of the countries at the time, maybe it's changed, but at the time, the countries that had access to the OAS's scholarship fund, the Bahamas was not one of them. And part of the reason that was given was because our GDP, we're not broke based on that. But that's the thing. I was broke. Still am. The average Bahamian don't got slack $30,000 just slopping around somewhere, right? So these numbers that are not wrong, there's the thing. I'm not saying that you're a liar, but the numbers aren't wrong, but the numbers also not right. Because once again, numbers don't lie, but Bahamians don't count. Okay, so let's bring it back to the VAT thing, the $11 thing. When I heard it, the first thing that comes to my mind is, what is average? And I remember being in school and there being 3 types of averages. And everybody's familiar with the big one where it's like you take one number and you divide it and you spread it across, and whatever the number is, that's the average, right? And that is fine. But there are 3 types of things that work in a similar way that give you certain information. And depending on what you're trying to express, you use different formulas to get to that point. That is to say, numbers can be manipulated. So I have to pull it up. The mean, median, and mode, which of course, if you like me and you've been out of school for 23 years, you gotta sometimes go back and say, wait a minute, which one is which? So the mean is what that media house did, right? They took one number and they divided it by another number and they said, well, this is the average, right? So if you take 15 million and you divide it by whatever many thousand, it comes up to like $11 and something cents or whatever. And so, okay, that is the average. But that doesn't really tell you anything because in the grand scheme of things, the way averages work is we're taking a number that there's no specifics to that number. So there are going to be people who spend out of the 15, there's people who are spending $1 million. There are people who are spending $10,000. There are people who are spending $200. And different amounts of spending are going to result in different amounts of VAT being taken away. So there will be some Bahamians within a month that only get $11 worth of savings. Simultaneously, there'll be somebody who gets $100 worth of savings. There might be somebody who gets $200 worth of savings, depending on how many things they are purchasing. There are also people on that scale who are only going to get $1 worth of savings. So if you're a person who you work all the time, you have no time to cook for yourself, you don't clean for yourself, everything is prepared for you. The savings don't really pass on to you. If you're a person that you do everything for yourself, then the savings might. If you're a person that has a larger family, because think about it now, if you live by yourself, you use a certain amount of toilet paper, use a certain amount of joy and bleach and detergent, you buy in a certain amount of food. And I'm also, I know that we're the uncooked food thing is an old thing, but for the sake of this conversation, right? You have more grocery and shopping expenses. And so your bill will be different. You're purchasing more of that stuff. And so that VAT contribution would have been higher. And now you're going to be saving more. So there might be somebody with 3 or 4 children that instead of saving the $10 or that a person who spends $200 a month on these items, they might be spending $400 a month on these items. And now instead of saving $10, they're saving $20. The numbers change depending on where you are. So you have mean, median, and mode. The mean is the average. That tells us nothing about that tells you nothing about real people. That tells you about a fictitious person that may or may not exist. That's if we spread everything out, if everything is fair and equitable in life, and we know that's not how the world works. The median is if you take all the numbers from the person who is spending $0 at the grocery store to the person who is constantly, they use so much bleach and they use so much joy and so much detergent and so much tissue and so much whatever that they are spending $1,000 a month at the grocery store. And all the numbers in between, and you line them up. The median is the number that's directly in the middle. So that might be 500, it might be 400, it could be 200, it could be 900, it could be 600, it could be any number. We don't know because that's not the calculation that was done. Finally, the mode is, in my mind, the most effective one to use in a situation like this because the mode would tell you which of all of the numbers is the most occurring number. So if you took all the Bahamians and you said, hey guys, you buy groceries and you buy essential items from the food store, from the grocery store, what on average, what like month to month, how much do you spend? And you take all the different results and the number that keeps popping up. Let's say it's 200. You spend $200 a month and it keeps popping up, keeps popping up, keeps popping up. And now you're like, okay, the 5% from the 200 would be $10. All right. That would be the mode. So we know when we then would say the average, we actually mean the most likely number that you would make or you would save from this exercise would be $10 because we know that when we asked all the Bahamians, that's the number that keeps popping up, $200 a month. But how would one come to that number? You would have, because right now I'm just guessing, I'm just saying numbers out of my head. The only way you'd know is if you went to, I don't know, statistical institute of some sort, and you had somebody do a survey within a department, and then they asked households, what was your expenditure? Which of course does exist because there was a household expenditure survey, but the results aren't out yet. So the number that was given, that people have ran with, because it's an easy number to conceive, it's an easy headline, it makes sense. There is not enough data to support that. Now here's the thing. When the household expenditure survey comes out, the number might be less than $10 that the average person saves. It might be $5, it may be $2, but it also could be more. That number doesn't exist yet because the information, the math, there were people on the road asking people questions, saying save your receipts. There were billboards. There was a whole campaign. That information is not out yet. So to have a conversation about numbers that you do not actually have feels either disingenuous or irresponsible or somebody was jumping the gun, but it does not the word that comes to me is not right. It doesn't feel right. It feels like a jump of the gun. Now, I'm not going to say maybe they should apologize to the prime minister. Far be it from me. They might be correct. It may be that the average Bahamian will get $11. Because what do we mean by averages when there's more than one way to calculate the concept and the idea of an average? They mean the mean, but the mode is a better example of what is happening. And they don't, you can't, it doesn't exist. I was going to do the calculations myself. I went and I asked, I called, well, I contacted somebody inside the department, formerly Department of Statistics, the Bahamas National Statistical Institute, and they're like, oh, the expenditure survey is not out yet. And the last one before that would have been 2013, and that information is no longer relevant. So I wanted to come with numbers and say, oh, well, they were right or they were wrong, but the numbers don't exist. But then again, the reason why there are three types of averages that one can come to, mean, median, or mode, is because it depends on what is the message that you're trying to send. It depends on the way you wish this message to be sent, because you can manipulate numbers to your own use, satisfaction, whatever you want to call it. Because numbers don't lie, but Bahamians don't count. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. You are watching and listening to Sidebar 103 The Beat podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sidebar 103 The Beat podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. Today, we're talking about how numbers don't lie, but Bahamians don't count. And I say that because this all stems from, I mean, you guys have seen it, the meme where they're like, they put the prime minister's face on an $11 bill, which, by the way, if I was him, I would 100%, like, clearly he can't print it because, you know, central bank is very weird about stuff like that. They're like, only us can make money. But there must be a way to capitalize on it, because it makes sense to me. But I wanted to talk about that today, because here's the other thing, right? Forget the $11. Let's go to 10, because $10 is it's just the easiest, a rounded number. Oh, by the way, sorry, I forgot. I was supposed to tell you guys. Well, I don't take phone calls, but going forward at ILTV, with all the what do they call it? The talk shows, the call-in talk shows. Going forward, they're going to charge you like $5 every time you call in. And like it'll automatically be billed to your phone. You call from a cell phone, it'll just take $5 off your cell phone for every time that you call. But you know, it's just $5, right? Because $5 isn't that much money. But you would lose your mind if that was true. You would probably attempt to call the radio station, but then not call the radio station. You'd probably just leave angry messages online because $5 isn't a little bit of money. $10 isn't a little bit of money. If somebody said to me, hey, Stephen, do you want $10 at the end of the month? And to get this $10 at the end of the month, you had to do nothing else, nothing new. I am not so far removed from reality. I'm not so rich that $10 is nothing to me. Now, do I have bills that are larger than $10? Of course I do. But it's January. And as we enter the 5th week of January, if somebody were to walk up to you and say, I have a $10 voucher to any restaurant, you would probably take it. If I said, call in right now and you can win a $10 voucher to your favorite lettuce and tomato place, that's not even a thing, but you might still call. It's free money. Because $10 is not a little bit of money. Not in this economy, and certainly not before inflation started. $10 may not fill your gas tank, but it is still 2 gallons of gas, well, almost 2 gallons of gas. And I think about how persons with the headline try to minimize and say, oh, it's just $11 that you'd save. And that's assuming their numbers are right, which we've already concluded the numbers may or may not be right. They're not available in reality. But let's pretend the number was correct. $10. I wanted to go to the media house and leave $10 vouchers at the desk and tell the receptionist, anybody from management who wants one of these $10 vouchers can have exactly one, but they're also allowed to not take it. If they have no interest in it, they can just leave it there. Because in my heart, I knew that if I did such a thing, I've seen those specific people freak out over free coffee. I know there would be no vouchers left. But then I also didn't want to spend any money to prove myself correct when I already knew that in my heart. I would just be doing it to be petty, to just be like, okay, let me record them being, thinking that $10 is a lot of money. And then I thought, it's like, okay, what if, right? I went to a breakfast place and I said, hey, I'm gonna, for the next 10 people, I'll pay for their breakfast. The breakfast doesn't usually come with $10 if you're talking about a breakfast stand, but I'll pay for their breakfast for the next 10 people, right? And those 10 people got free breakfast because I was putting down $10 for each of them. They would have an extra $10. I don't think they'd be like, ugh, all we got is $10. They'd be like, great, I have $10. Worst, if we go back to, once again, the example of you having a child or children, you're in a rush, you're trying to hurry up, feed them, and someone in front of you says, man, I got this breakfast. Now you don't have to buy breakfast for your 2, 3 children. Whatever money we're going to spend on their breakfast, you could just give that to them for lunch, and you have the money that you would have had to give them for lunch. You have extra money. This changes your day. It's not going to buy you a house, but it does do what it says on the label, and it's going to make your life easier. It's helping you to exist within the horrible framework of this world. It's not the be all end all, but it does make life because, my friend, if you think that $10 is nothing, it's negligible, ask the next person, that the person next to you or the next person you see, ask them for $10 and see how many of them just give you $10 versus saying, what do you need $10 for? Because $10 seems like a little bit compared to $15 million. It seems like a little bit if you make 6 figures a year. It seems like a little bit if you drive a Mercedes Benz. It seems like a little bit if your children have always gone to a private school that is the yearly fee for it is so high that it has always been more than what it costs to go to university. It may seem like nothing in those circumstances, those situations. Or if you were trying to make the government look dumb, it may seem like a lot. It may seem like nothing, sorry. But in the real world, in the Bahamas world, where the rest of us live, $10 is a lot of money. It is January. If I were able to save $10 in January and $10 in February and $10 in March and April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and then we get to December. If I save $10 for each of those, that'd be $120 that I saved over the course of the year. Now, whether or not I actually took the $10 that I saved and put it somewhere safe so that at the end of the year I had $120, or I put it in the general fund so that my life was $10 easier for the length of the year. Having that $120 of space, of breathing room at the end of the year, I don't know about you, but for me, I wish that I had $120 this December that just passed by. But once again, the people who wrote these stories, who are writing these stories, those persons, they live a very different life than us. Some of them have condominiums, and actually multiple of them have condominiums. Right? They have multiple homes. They have multiple pieces of property. They don't live the same life that me and you live. $10 to them is nothing, but to me and you, $10 is money. That is an actual amount of money. So I wish that I had $120 extra this Christmas. In the 5 weeks of January, I wish that I had an extra $120. I wish that I had an extra $10. I do not think that anyone would besmirch getting an extra $10. So we have to ask ourselves, who are we getting our news from? Who are these people that $10 is beneath them, that it is nothing? Not everybody spends $10 on lunch. Not everybody spends $10 on any meal. Not everybody has a free $10. Right now I have $1 inside my wallet, but that's because I use cards. But there are people who literally don't have $10 to their name, and they're waiting or hoping, or they're trying to get a job, or they need a little bit of extra money to catch the bus, and they're walking to save as much money as possible. See, that's something that I remember. I remember being a kid, going to school, and for the entirety of my high school career, I only got $2. Not $2 for lunch, $2 a day, if that. And I had to catch a bus from Garden Hills down south, and then a bus back. And for when you get at a certain point in high school, bus is 75 cents. And so that's $1.50. So I'd go to school and know that I would only have 50 cents to figure out what to eat for lunch. And there's lunch and 2 breaks. And the only thing you could buy for 50 cents back then, you can't buy it now, but you could buy a chip for 50 cents or a drink, but that was it. I couldn't buy a hot patty, couldn't buy anything else. And so you know what I started to do? I would walk from Garden Hills to Princeville because I was going to Princeville at the time. I would walk from Garden Hills to Princeville. I'd leave home at 8 and I'd get to Princeville around 8:40, 8:45, depending on how fast I walked. 8:30, if somebody saw me in the CM uniform and say, oh, jump in the car as they were dropping their kid to school. And that would save me the first dollar. And then I realized, okay, even if I had to catch the bus to school, I definitely could walk back. And so I would always be walking back. And so walking from school home, then I would definitely have $1. And then I'd have to do little, they call it gig work now, but like I would go run errands for people and say, okay, hey, you guys don't want to go and stand on the line for your own lunch. You guys don't want to go and walk all the way down to the tuck shop to get a chip or juice or candy or something. I'll go do that for you. Let me get the change. And that's how I would buy lunch. And I remember other people having $5 for lunch, $10 for lunch. Some people had $20 for lunch. I had $2. And so to me, $10 has never been a small amount of money. But once again, numbers don't lie, but Bahamians don't count. We're going to take a break. You are watching and listening to Sidebar 103 The Beat podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. We'll be right back.
Okay, guys, this is what we doing today. We training for the bounce back. This $150K payday. Y'all ready? Yes. Y'all sweating today. Give me a 2 ball. 10. Give me another 2 ball. 15. You spin, right? It don't look so. There's 10K. Name these games after me. Fruit Dragon.
Fruit Dragon.
Cinema Classic.
Cinema Classic.
Yeah. Put that parlay in. Put that in. You know, Jalen Brunson disappointed us last time. You want to walk for this or you want to run for this? Good pace. Good pace. Not too much water. Put it down. Let's go.
It's the Bounce Back 150K payday. Big wins for 10 weeks straight. 15K every week. 10K to a lucky winner. Visit islandluck.com for more info. Island Luck. Winners live here.
Welcome to Paradise Premium Foods, where exceptional taste meets everyday convenience. Right in the heart of Hurricane Hole Plaza, whether you're planning a beachside brunch, an intimate dinner, or simply restocking your favorites, we offer only the finest selection of local and imported goods, handpicked for quality, freshness, and flavor. At Paradise Premium Foods, shopping is effortless, service is personal, and every visit feels like a treat. From gourmet meals to go to organic essentials and indulgent treats, this is your neighborhood market elevated. Live well, eat better. Discover Paradise Premium Foods, now open at Hurricane Hole Plaza, Paradise Island. Paradise Premium Foods. Taste the difference.
Welcome back to Sidebar 103 The Beat podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. Today, the topic is numbers don't lie, but Bahamians don't count. And this all came about because everybody's been talking about, oh, this change in VAT is only going to result in, what's it called? It's only going to result in like $11 worth of savings. And so, in the grand scheme of things, what is that? Oh, the government's failed and blah, 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 X, Y, and Z. But one, that number is essentially pulled out of nowhere, that we don't know what that number really represents, because it represents the mean, but it doesn't represent the mode or the median, because we don't have enough information to actually give us any meaningful information from the numbers that we have, other than you will save some money. It could be worse than $11. That is the reoccurring, the most Bahamians, the average Bahamian, the thought of, it could be worse, but it also could be better. And so it is disingenuous for us to run with this number as media personalities. If you are on the internet, have at it. Knock yourself out. Laugh it all up. If you're in the House of Assembly, maybe don't quote newspapers that don't sell. Maybe talk to somebody who does math. Maybe go talk to an accountant and watch them look at you sideways and say, that's not how that works, right? That numbers don't lie, but people can adjust, they can ease, they can massage the numbers so that the numbers say what they want the numbers to say, and they mean what they want them to mean. Because once again, numbers don't lie, but Bahamians don't count. And when I say Bahamians don't count, I mean that in both ways. I both mean that the people who are coming up with these numbers, they are not capable of calculating them in any meaningful way. They are not being realistic in the real world that we live in. They are disillusioned and disentangled. But also, I mean to say that Bahamians like me and you, we don't count, not to those people. Here is a thing that I've never said on the air before. I used to work at the other media company, and I've stopped listening to them because every time I listen, I would get inflamed and upset. Why? Why would I get inflamed and upset? So here's I don't even know. I feel like it's a lie, but it's not a lie. It's not a lie. It's a deception. It's a fiction. They are economical with the truth. We've heard over and over again how during this particular administration that a lot of persons left the media and started working for the government. And it was sold and repeated and propagated by the persons who remained in the media that it was some sort of evil government conspiracy to hamstring the media so that the media wouldn't be as strong as possible. We're going to take all the reporters, we're going to take all the camera persons, we're going to take everybody out of the media and put them in the government so they won't be able to criticize the government because they work for the government. Do you think that all of the reporters who stopped working for media houses when the government changed did so because they hate journalism, because they hated their job, they hated the friends and the co-workers they'd made over years? Sometimes it was 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, decades. Do you think that it was that? Do you think that the government offered them so much money that they couldn't say no? Because I tell you, the government didn't offer them, us, such an absorbent amount of money that we couldn't say no. What happened was, and the reason this comes up is because earlier this year, in this January of 2026, I said, maybe let me listen. Let me just listen to it. Maybe I'm over it. Maybe I could listen to this old media company, the show that I used to be on, and I turn it on to hear the host saying that they are the only people holding the government accountable, that all of the other people have left and now work for the government in PR. Did I feel personally attacked? The thing is, journalism is neutral. PR is propaganda. Whether you do it for a food store or an organization, you could do it for a church, it's still propaganda. You could do it for a charity, it's propaganda. We're trying to convince you of this specific thing. Journalism, that's supposed to be neutral. I'm just telling you what new thing has happened. I'm giving you new information. You are to decide on your own. I am not a journalist. This is punditry. I'm just telling you my opinion. But when you get into PR, that's propaganda. But this person is saying that we no longer hold the government to account because we all went into PR and we're all sellouts. And the question is, how did we become affordable? And I'll tell you the answer. Because media houses, in particular this one, have legacies of underpaying their staff. They are free to tell me that I am wrong, but I want you to know that there are persons that worked and work in the media today that make less than teachers, and we all know that teachers are underpaid. But at least teachers get a month and a half off every year. The reason there is no loyalty to you is because you don't rate your employees. The media houses that will write stories about unions will not allow unions to exist within their media structure. The media houses that write stories about this person has not been paid by the government or this person is seeking payment will tell persons to work overtime and then say, oh, I can't give you money. Would you like time back? Or if you want more money, you need to work more time when there is not that many hours in the day to make up based on the rate of pay that you are paying me enough to make a livable or a living wage or to just be able to live. Those media houses, the management, the owners, they're able to have mortgages. Some of them are blessed enough to not have mortgages. But then the persons who are at the age when they started can't afford to get a mortgage. Sometimes they struggle to pay for other stuff. And they're like, I'm not making enough money, but you want me to wear certain clothes and to show up at certain places and to be of a certain caliber, but you're not giving me enough. And then the government comes and says, hey, we need somebody to write a press release for us. We know that you used to write for a newspaper. Would you come and write for us? And then the person says, I mean, I guess, how much are you willing to pay? And the starting salary is double what the media house was paying you because the media house is paying you so little. Numbers do not lie, but Bahamians don't count. Media house, same media house. You want to know what number is bigger? What number do you think is bigger? The amount of money that I was paid to co-host for many years on that media house's premiere station, premiere show, or the $10 a month that you will save with VAT, according to their fallacious numbers. Which number do you think is bigger? The money that I was paid over the years co-hosting that show that has so many ads, that has an extra hour of content that is specifically targeted at, I guess, commercials and businesses. Do you think I made more money off of that, or that the government's $10 of savings is more than that? And when you think about that, and the fact that you have to think about that, and the fact that I can say that without fear of any repercussions of being called a liar, the fact that I can say that should make you question, why are you listening to them? You gotta be careful who you're getting your news from. And don't get me wrong, everybody has their issues. Everybody has their cracks. Everybody has their flaws. But certain people, I will never let them tell me about money. I will never let them dictate to me what is a lot of savings versus zero savings, because they don't give you enough money to save anything. And so it's not wise for me to take any news from them. And honestly, you shouldn't either. Hey, there's a reason why when you go to the gas station, one newspaper is sold out, and the other one people won't even use to clean their car or to put underneath the mats of their car when it gets clean. But again, I could be wrong. I mean, that's just numbers. That's just units. That's things that I've observed with my own eyes over and over again for months, for years. But hey, although numbers don't lie, Bahamians don't count. Anyway, this has been Sidebar, a 103 to Beat podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. True God still.
So you want a space. But not just any space. You need something with a little more potential. So how about 1,000 square feet of room to play with? Superb audio and video production capability, digital LED wall, full lighting grid, and about 124 seats to accommodate a full studio audience with so many other features. Make us your home for your next concert, conference, and so much more. Honestly, the possibilities are endless. Here at ILTV Studios, we'd love to bring your next event to life. So what do you say? Do you want our space?